Visiting the Grand Canyon is like stepping into a natural masterpiece, a place where even the most ordinary selfie can look extraordinary. For 35-year-old Colleen Burns from Florida, what began as a casual adventure turned into a tragic accident that the world would remember. Colleen, a bright and ambitious marketing professional working as a regional director for Yelp, had planned a day of hiking with friends along the South Kaibab Trail. Her destination was Ooh-Ah Point, a famous viewpoint known for its dramatic scenery and breathtaking panoramas. Earlier that day, she had posted a photo on Instagram from near the rim, capturing the stunning landscape with the caption, "That view though," sharing a moment of awe and natural beauty with her followers. The photo now serves as a poignant reminder of the fragility of life and the suddenness with which tragedy can strike. Colleen loved nature and adventure, and hiking was a way for her to experience life fully, to take in the world from a perspective that few others could see. The Grand Canyon, in its immense and awe-inspiring scale, is the kind of place that makes people feel both small and infinitely connected to the planet. Colleen's excitement to explore, to capture that perfect view, and to share it with others reflected her vibrant personality and zest for life. The accident itself happened in an instant, a brief moment that changed everything. As Colleen adjusted her position to let a friend take pictures, she lost her footing near the cliff edge and fell approximately 400 feet to her death. Witnesses described the moment as almost impossible to comprehend, a rapid and shocking event that felt unreal. The Grand Canyon is majestic, but it is also unforgiving, and Ooh-Ah Point is a stark reminder that natural beauty can come with serious risks. Park rangers discovered Colleen's body later that day, and news of the accident quickly spread across social media and news outlets. Coverage highlighted both the peril of approaching cliff edges and the personal loss of a young, talented woman whose life had been full of promise. Friends and colleagues described Colleen as energetic, kind, and full of life, making the tragedy even more heartbreaking. The incident is a solemn reminder that even in well-trodden areas, one small misstep can have irreversible consequences. The Grand Canyon may be inviting, but it demands caution and respect, and Colleen's fall serves as a sobering example of how sudden and severe accidents in nature can be. Colleen's story has been widely shared online as both a cautionary tale and a tribute to her life. Videos, memorials, and news clips underline the tension between capturing memorable moments and prioritizing safety. Many have reflected on her life and the circumstances of the accident as a reminder to cherish every day, to approach adventure thoughtfully, and to recognize the unpredictable forces of nature. Her Instagram post, once a celebration of a spectacular view, now carries a somber weight. The accident encourages reflection on how fleeting life can be and how quickly circumstances can change. Friends and family have honored her memory by sharing stories, posting tributes, and reminding others to enjoy life fully, while respecting the inherent dangers of natural landscapes. Colleen's life, though tragically cut short, continues to resonate with people around the world, inspiring admiration for her adventurous spirit and a deeper understanding of the balance between beauty, risk, and mindfulness. Her story is both heartbreaking and instructive, a reminder that while the world is full of incredible sights to explore, safety and awareness should always remain a priority, and that life can change in the blink of an eye. Sometimes, the most dangerous addictions don't come in bottles labeled poison. Sometimes, they're marketed as healthy, wrapped in virtue, and swallowed with smug confidence. That was the fatal mistake made by Basil Brown, a 48-year-old British scientist whose unwavering belief in extreme health habits led him to a bizarre and entirely preventable death. Brown was deeply invested in the idea that more nutrients automatically meant better health. He wasn't satisfied with moderation or balance. Instead, he embraced an all-or-nothing mindset, convinced that flooding his body with vitamins would cleanse it, strengthen it, and elevate him above ordinary people who followed conventional medical advice. What he failed to grasp was that the human body has limits he bulldozed straight through. In the days leading up to his death, Brown embarked on what can only be described as a self-designed nutritional experiment. Over the course of just 10 days, he consumed staggering amounts of vitamin A, roughly 70 million units, alongside nearly a gallon of carrot juice every single day. To him, this wasn't reckless. It was dedication, proof that he was serious about real health. His body, however, told a very different story. By the time Brown collapsed, his skin had turned a vivid yellow-orange, an alarming sign that his system was overwhelmed by carotene. What many consider a harmless pigment had saturated his tissues, signaling a toxic buildup that his liver could no longer process. When doctors later examined his body, the damage was unmistakable and shocking. The post-mortem revealed that Brown's liver had deteriorated in a way nearly identical to that of a long-term alcoholic. The irony was brutal. A man who prided himself on clean living had destroyed his liver as thoroughly as someone who drank themselves into oblivion. The cause wasn't alcohol, drugs, or disease. It was vitamins. Specifically, vitamin A toxicity so severe, it shut his organs down. Medical experts explain that excessive vitamin A consumption can poison the body, attacking the liver and triggering catastrophic organ failure. In Brown's case, the effects mirrored acute alcohol poisoning, leading to cirrhosis and death. What made the situation even more tragic was how unnecessary it all was. This wasn't a mysterious illness or a rare condition. It was the direct result of ignoring basic biological reality. At the coroner's inquest, the conclusion was blunt and damning. Brown didn't die of natural causes or an unfortunate accident. He died because he couldn't stop. His obsession with health crossed into addiction, and that addiction killed him. The official ruling named the cause without euphemism, carrot juice addiction. Those who knew Brown described him as intelligent and passionate, someone who genuinely believed he was improving his life. But belief is not the same as truth, and confidence does not replace caution. In the end, Basil Brown wasn't undone by junk food, vice, or neglect. He was undone by arrogance disguised as discipline, by a refusal to believe that too much could apply to something as wholesome as carrots. His story remains one of the most absurd examples of how obsession, when left unchecked, can turn even the healthiest idea into a lethal one. In February 2025, a passenger bus tragedy unfolded in Bolivia, capturing global attention and highlighting the dangers of the country's mountain roads. The incident occurred in the Yocala municipality of the Potosi department, a remote region known for steep cliffs, narrow paths, and unforgiving terrain. On that day, a bus carrying over 40 passengers was traveling from Potosi to Oruro, a route already challenging due to winding roads and extreme elevations. As the bus navigated a sharp curve along the mountainside, it lost control and plummeted into a deep ravine estimated to be over 800 meters in depth. The impact was catastrophic, leaving at least 30 people dead and many others seriously injured, with several rushed to intensive care units. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, as local emergency teams and residents raced to reach the ravine to rescue survivors, recover bodies, and provide urgent medical attention. This disaster served as a grim reminder of how unforgiving these rural roads can be, where a single error or mechanical failure can result in large-scale tragedy. Bolivian authorities quickly launched investigations to determine the exact causes, considering factors such as excessive speed, vehicle condition, and driver fatigue. Early reports suggested the bus may have been traveling faster than safe for the road, but the full details remained under review, leaving families and the nation searching for answers. The human toll of the crash extended beyond statistics, affecting families and communities with profound grief and logistical challenges. Bolivia's mountainous roads have long been considered some of the most dangerous in the world, drawing comparisons to the infamous Yungas Road, often called the Death Road. Contributing factors include narrow paths with few guardrails, sudden weather changes, steep drop-offs, and vehicles often ill-prepared for such harsh terrain, including improved infrastructure, stricter driver training, and more effective emergency response systems. Media coverage documented the scale of the disaster, showing the depth of the ravine and the scattered wreckage, while highlighting the bravery of first responders who risked their lives to aid survivors. International outlets such as Reuters, ABC News, and regional sources like Infobay reported extensively, lasting social and psychological effects on local populations, regulatory oversight, and public accountability. The tragedy highlighted the need for stricter safety protocols for public transport and infrastructure improvements to prevent similar events in the future. It also served as a cautionary tale about the deadly combination of human error, difficult geography, and insufficient safety measures, vigilance, and careful planning. While technological advancement continues to improve road safety in many parts of the world, the Yokela disaster demonstrated that even in a modern era, mountainous regions demand caution and preparedness. Ultimately, the tragedy left an indelible mark on local communities, underscoring the importance of awareness, infrastructure investment, and the sobering reality that beauty in the mountains comes with inherent risks that must never be underestimated. It started like one of those postcard-perfect vacation days, the kind where the sky stretches out in a clean blue sheet and the canyon looks so vast it almost feels unreal. Grand Canyon West was busy with tourists moving from viewpoint to viewpoint, sneakers crunching over gravel, cameras clicking non-stop, everyone trying to capture that one photo that could never quite match the real thing. Near Eagle Point, close to the famous Skywalk, a man in his 50s was doing what most visitors do at places like this, stepping toward the edge to get a better view, lining up the canyon walls and the winding river far below in his frame. It was casual, ordinary, the sort of small moment you don't think twice about. Just another traveler trying to take home a memory. But the Grand Canyon isn't just scenic, it's massive, raw, and unforgiving. The cliffs don't have guardrails everywhere, and the ground near the edges can be loose and uneven. One misstep is all it takes. As he adjusted his position for photos, the man reportedly slipped near the overlook and fell. Witnesses later said the drop was around 1,000 feet, a staggering distance that turns your stomach just thinking about it. 1 second he was standing with everyone else, and the next he was gone, swallowed by the sheer emptiness of the canyon. The cheerful vacation noise faded fast, replaced by shock and confusion, as people realized what had happened. Something that began as a normal sightseeing stop turned into an emergency in an instant. Authorities were alerted immediately, and rescue crews responded, but the terrain made everything incredibly difficult. The canyon walls are steep, jagged, and nearly impossible to navigate on foot, so a helicopter had to be used to reach and recover his body. Officials later confirmed there was no foul play, just a tragic accident, the kind that feels both sudden and senseless. It's the harsh reality of natural landmarks like this. They're breathtaking, but they're also powerful and indifferent to human plans. The same cliffs that make the view spectacular are the ones that make a fall unsurvivable. There's no second chance, no dramatic movie rescue, just the quiet weight of what could have been avoided. Stories like this hit differently because they feel so relatable. He wasn't climbing recklessly or doing anything extreme. He wasn't chasing danger. He was simply taking photos, doing what millions of visitors do every year. That's what makes it unsettling. It reminds you how easy it is to get comfortable, to focus on the screen in your hand instead of the ground beneath your feet. We get caught up trying to capture the moment and forget to actually respect where we're standing. Nature doesn't care about selfies or scenic shots. It doesn't pause to give warnings. In the end, what should have been a day of sightseeing and memories turned into a devastating loss for a family who likely expected nothing more than vacation photos and stories. The canyon stayed the same, quiet and endless, but for those who witnessed it, the place probably never looked quite as carefree again. It serves as a sobering reminder that some views are best admired with caution, a few careful steps back from the edge, and both feet planted firmly on the ground. What was meant to be a daring leap into adrenaline-fueled thrill instead became a fatal lesson in physics, judgment, and the dangerous confidence of youth. On a quiet Saturday, 22-year-old Eric Barcia climbed onto a railroad trestle, intent on performing a homemade bungee jump, one that would ultimately cost him his life. The trestle stood roughly 70 feet above the ground, a height that would terrify most people. But for Barcia, fear wasn't the problem. Confidence was. Instead of seeking out a regulated bungee operation with trained professionals, safety harnesses, and tested equipment, he decided to create his own setup. The result was a patchwork system made from multiple bungee cords, thin, elastic ropes with hooks on either end, joined together using tape. Police later determined that Barcia had fastened one end of this improvised cord to his feet and secured the other end to the bridge itself. By all appearances, he believed he had done the math. The total length of the cords, when measured unstretched, came in just under the distance between the bridge and the ground. In his mind, this meant success. Jump, fall, rebound, simple. But there was one crucial detail he failed to fully account for: elasticity. Bungee cords are designed to stretch. That stretch is the very thing that creates the bounce, the rebound, the thrill. Unfortunately, it also means that a cord that appears short enough on paper can lengthen dramatically under the weight of a human body, traveling at speed. When Barcia stepped off the trestle, gravity did the rest. Instead of stopping mid-air, the cords stretched far beyond their initial length. There was no rebound, no dramatic snap upward. He struck the ground below with fatal force. Emergency responders arrived at the scene, but there was nothing they could do. Barcia was pronounced dead where he landed. The spot where he fell was not a designated recreational area, far from it. The trestle had posted warnings clearly stating that access was prohibited. Officials later emphasized that the bridge was never intended for pedestrians, let alone thrill-seekers attempting stunts. To those who knew him, the incident was almost impossible to reconcile with the person they remembered. Barcia was described by family members as intelligent and capable, someone who had done well in school and maintained steady employment. There was no history of recklessness that might have hinted at such a dangerous impulse. That contrast between who he was and how he died only deepened the shock. Investigators later reiterated the findings. The length of the assembled cords exceeded the safe distance between the trestle and the ground. Once stretch was factored in, it wasn't a mystery. It was a miscalculation, pure and simple. A fatal oversight rooted in the assumption that measuring length alone was enough to control risk. This was not the first time Barcia's name appeared in connection with this incident. In fact, police in Reston, Virginia, had previously released a statement confirming that a young man by the same name had died under similar circumstances. The details aligned. A 22-year-old, a bridge roughly 70 feet high, and a homemade bungee setup created outside of any professional oversight. What makes the story particularly haunting is how close it came to working, at least in Barcia's mind. He hadn't jumped blindly. He hadn't acted on a whim in the heat of the moment. He believed he had planned carefully. He measured. He secured the cords. He trusted his calculations. But confidence without expertise can be deadly. Bungee jumping is an activity that depends on precise engineering, specialized materials, and rigorous safety protocols. Commercial operators calculate not just distance, but weight, cord elasticity, environmental conditions, and margin for error. Barcia, armed only with tape, store-bought cords, and a ruler, attempted to replicate all of that on his own. In the end, the trestle stood unchanged. The warning signs remained. Life in the surrounding area continued. But one young man was gone, not because he lacked potential, but because he underestimated danger and overestimated his control over it. Barcia's death has since become a cautionary tale, one often cited in discussions about preventable accidents and so-called dumb ways to die. Not because he was foolish by nature, but because the decision itself was fatally flawed. It serves as a grim reminder that danger doesn't always announce itself with chaos. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as confidence, preparation, and the belief that nothing will go wrong. And sometimes the only mistake it takes is forgetting that bungee cords stretch. High in the Bolivian Andes, where the air thins and the mountains feel close enough to touch, the North Yungas Road winds down from La Paz toward the lush valleys below, a narrow ribbon of dirt and broken asphalt clinging to sheer rock faces. Locals call it Death Road, not as a joke or exaggeration, but but as a simple description of what the journey often meant. The path hugs cliffs that drop hundreds of meters into jungle, with no guardrails and barely enough space for two vehicles to breathe past each other. Waterfalls spill across the surface, fog rolls in without warning, and loose stones crunch under tires like quiet warnings. For decades, this route served as a lifeline for farmers, workers, and families, carrying buses and trucks loaded with people and supplies. Every trip demanded focus, steady hands, and a little faith. A small mistake could send a vehicle sliding toward the edge, and the mountains never offered mercy. Beauty and danger existed side by side, the green valleys glowing in the distance, while the road itself felt fragile, temporary, almost borrowed from the cliff. Drivers listened closely to engines and brakes, hoping both would behave that day always. In 1983, one journey along this same road turned into a tragedy that the country still remembers with quiet sorrow. A passenger bus, crowded beyond comfort and stacked with luggage on the roof, began its descent carrying workers, students, and families returning home. Inside, conversations drifted between seats, children leaned against windows, and the ordinary rhythm of travel settled in. Then the weather shifted, and the surface grew slick, the kind of change drivers feared because traction vanished without warning. As the bus approached a narrow bend, the tires lost their grip, and the heavy vehicle slid toward the edge. There were no barriers to catch it, no space to correct the angle, only open air waiting below. Witnesses later spoke of a brief moment of silence before the bus tipped and disappeared down the ravine, tumbling through rock and brush until it finally stopped far below. More than 100 passengers died, making it one of the deadliest road accidents in Bolivian history. Rescue teams faced steep slopes, unstable ground, and fading light, and every step down the cliff felt slow and heartbreaking. Names were gathered, belongings counted, and families waited above with hope slowly dissolving that night alone. After that day, the reputation of a Yungas road hardened into something almost mythical, spoken with respect and unease. Stories of crashes traveled faster than the buses themselves, and each tale added weight to the name Death Road. Drivers learned to honk before blind turns, to hug the mountainside, and to pray quietly during storms. Mechanics checked brakes twice. Families worried whenever a loved one boarded a vehicle, and every descent felt like a gamble against the landscape. Over the years, authorities recognized that the route demanded more than courage, so they planned a safer highway that bypassed the worst cliffs and curves. When the new road finally opened, heavy traffic shifted away, and the old path slowly transformed. Today, cyclists and adventure seekers roll down the same slopes wearing helmets and bright jackets, chasing adrenaline where others once feared for their lives. The scenery remains breathtaking. Clouds drifting across green valleys, birds circling above waterfalls, yet the past lingers beneath the beauty. Memorials, stories, and quiet memories remind visitors that these mountains have taken much. The 1983 bus crash stands as a solemn lesson about infrastructure, responsibility, and the limits of human control for generations who remember and reflect quietly. Base jumping is one of those adrenaline-fueled activities that looks incredible in videos and on social media, but hides a dark, unforgiving side that is rarely discussed outside extreme sports circles. In August 2024, the Grand Canyon became the tragic setting for one such high-risk adventure when a man attempted an illegal base jump from Yavapai Point on the South Rim. For those unfamiliar, base jumping involves leaping from fixed objects such as cliffs, towers, or bridges with nothing but a parachute to prevent a potentially fatal fall. While it appears thrilling in photographs and short video clips, the reality is far more dangerous, especially at locations like the Grand Canyon, where jagged cliffs, unpredictable wind currents, and sheer vertical drops leave very little margin for error. Unfortunately, this particular jump ended in tragedy. The jumper's body was found approximately 500 feet below the rim, lying beside his deployed parachute, highlighting in the most devastating way the risks that authorities have repeatedly warned against. The National Park Service strictly prohibits base jumping in the Grand Canyon, not to restrict adventure, but to prevent incidents exactly like this. And yet, some thrill seekers continue to disregard the rules, often with deadly results. What makes base jumping uniquely perilous is that it requires not only courage, but technical skill, planning, and a deep understanding of both physics and the environment. In this case, video footage taken by bystanders captured parts of the jump, showing the man stepping over the rim fully aware of the risks. Yet the canyon's unforgiving terrain allowed no room for error. A split-second misjudgment, a sudden gust of wind, or even a minor delay in parachute deployment can have catastrophic consequences. Experts have long emphasized that even a perfectly executed jump can go wrong because natural conditions are unpredictable, and the Grand Canyon amplifies every risk. Beyond the fall itself, rescue and recovery operations are incredibly challenging, requiring helicopters, trained personnel, and careful coordination. Park rangers must navigate steep cliffs and rocky terrain to recover victims, making the response both dangerous and complex. This incident underscores a sobering reality. Thrill-seeking in extreme environments is never without consequences, and the margin between adventure and tragedy is extraordinarily thin, often measured in mere seconds or inches. This tragedy also reflects the broader human fascination with risk and extreme experiences. Base jumping offers a sense of freedom and adrenaline that few other activities can match. Yet, the costs are extraordinarily high when regulations are ignored. The Grand Canyon, while breathtakingly beautiful, is an environment that demands respect, preparation, and caution. Rules such as the prohibition on base jumping exist not to limit fun, but to protect lives, and ignoring them puts both the jumper and rescue teams at serious risk. Authorities continue to stress that permits, training, and adherence to safety guidelines are essential, not optional, and are designed to prevent exactly this type of fatality. For those who witness or hear about such incidents, the message is clear. Admire the canyon from safe vantage points, or accept the consequences of ignoring its dangers. In this instance, the canyon determined the outcome, leaving behind a tragic story that is both a warning and a reminder of the high stakes involved in extreme sports. While the allure of adrenaline and daring feats can be powerful, the lesson is unambiguous. Nature's limits are absolute, and disrespecting them can have irreversible consequences, as demonstrated by the fatal jump at Yavapai Point. If there's one rule of the natural world that most people understand instinctively, it's this: wild animals are not props, pets, or photo opportunities. Unfortunately, every so often, someone decides that rule doesn't apply to them. In Belarus, one such moment of breathtaking arrogance ended in a way so absurd and preventable that it left even seasoned professionals stunned. The victim, a 60-year-old fisherman, died after being attacked by a beaver, an animal he chose to approach, grab, and pose with, despite every obvious warning sign that this was a terrible idea. His death wasn't the result of a freak accident or an unprovoked ambush. It was the consequence of entitlement meeting razor-sharp teeth. The incident occurred as the man and his friends were driving toward Shestakovskoy Lake, west of Minsk, for a fishing trip. Along the roadside, they spotted a beaver. Instead of doing what any sensible adult would do, admire it from a distance and keep moving, the fisherman stopped the car. What followed was a textbook Karen move. He decided the animal existed for his amusement. According to reports, the man attempted to grab the beaver so he could take a picture with it. No caution, no respect for the animal, no understanding that beavers are powerful wild rodents capable of inflicting serious injury. Just pure confidence that nothing bad would happen, because why would it? The beaver, unsurprisingly, disagreed. The animal reacted defensively, biting the man multiple times. One of those bites severed a major artery in his leg. Blood loss was rapid and severe. His friends, suddenly realizing that this fun moment had turned catastrophic, tried desperately to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. By the time they reached a nearby clinic, the man had already died. Medical staff were reportedly shocked by the nature of the injuries. This wasn't a small nip or a warning bite. It was a devastating wound caused by an animal equipped with teeth designed to cut through wood. A human leg never stood a chance. The irony is that this death didn't happen in isolation. Belarus has been experiencing an increase in encounters between humans and beavers for years. Once hunted nearly to extinction across Europe, beavers have made a strong comeback thanks to conservation efforts, hunting restrictions, and reintroduction programs. In Belarus alone, the population has surged to around 80,000, roughly triple what it was a decade ago. As their numbers have grown, beavers have expanded into areas closer to human activity, wandering near roads, homes, shops, and even schools. Emergency services have received multiple reports of aggressive encounters, often involving people who underestimated the animals or failed to leave them alone. Officials have even been dispatched to chase beavers away using fire hoses. In other words, the warnings were already there. Wildlife experts have explained that beavers, which can weigh up to 30 kilograms and stand nearly a meter tall, are especially unpredictable during certain seasons. In spring, younger beavers are pushed out of their family groups and forced to establish new territory, making them more aggressive and defensive. Because they are primarily nocturnal, encounters during daylight hours can leave them disoriented and frightened, conditions that increase the likelihood of an attack. None of that stopped this fisherman. Instead of recognizing the animal as potentially dangerous, he treated it like a roadside attraction. He ignored the fact that beavers are not docile, not domesticated, and not interested in selfies. His decision turned him into the only known person in Belarus to die as a direct result of a beaver attack, a distinction no one should ever want. The death has since been cited as a grim example of how human arrogance can collide fatally with wildlife. While officials have acknowledged that the growing beaver population is causing environmental and agricultural damage, they've also emphasized that these animals are not the problem. Human behavior is. The fisherman didn't die because beavers are suddenly monsters. He died because he refused to respect boundaries. He assumed control over a situation he clearly didn't understand. He treated a wild animal as though it were harmless entertainment, and paid for that assumption with his life. In the end, this wasn't a tragedy caused by bad luck. It was the inevitable outcome of a dumb choice. A moment of Karen-level entitlement. "I'll grab it, it'll be fine," was all it took. And so his story lives on as one of the most bizarre and avoidable deaths on record. A man who stopped on the side of the road, tried to manhandle a beaver for a photo, and discovered far too late that nature does not care about confidence, curiosity, or ego. A Friday afternoon in Londiani, a small town in Kenya's Kericho County, usually moves with a steady, familiar rhythm. The highway cuts straight through the town, and like in many places, the roadside isn't just a road, it's life itself. Traders set up stalls stacked with bananas, tomatoes, and second-hand clothes. Matatus squeeze in and out picking up passengers. Bodas zip past with their usual fearless confidence, and pedestrians drift between vehicles like it's all perfectly normal. It's noisy, crowded, a little chaotic, but alive in the warm, everyday way small towns are. Nothing about it suggests that within seconds, the entire scene will turn into one of the deadliest road disasters Kenya has seen in years. Then comes the truck, huge and imposing, hauling a heavy shipping container, the kind of vehicle that already looks too big for a packed town junction. Witnesses later say it seemed to lose control as it approached the busy Londiani junction, possibly struggling with speed or braking. Instead of slowing down, it kept coming, fast and unstoppable, and suddenly, that ordinary afternoon snapped into something terrifying. What followed wasn't a minor fender bender or a simple traffic jam. The truck plowed straight into everything in its path. Cars were crushed like soda cans, matatus were shoved aside, bodas toppled over, and market stalls were flattened in an instant. People who had just been bargaining over fruit or waiting for a ride had no time to react. One second they were chatting or laughing, and the next they were running, screaming, or caught directly in the truck's path. The container and the sheer weight of the vehicle turned it into a moving wall of metal. Debris flew everywhere, glass shattered, and the air filled with dust, smoke, and confusion. For a few awful moments, the junction didn't even look like a road anymore. It looked like a disaster movie set, except this was painfully real. Survivors described the sound as thunder mixed with crashing metal, followed by silence that felt heavier than anything. Then came the cries for help. Bystanders rushed in without thinking, pulling people from wrecked vehicles, lifting pieces of wood and twisted metal with their bare hands, trying to find anyone still alive underneath. Emergency services and the Kenya Red Cross scrambled to respond, but even rescue became difficult. Rain started to fall, turning the ground muddy and slowing everything down. Ambulances lined the roadside, ferrying the injured to nearby hospitals, while volunteers organized blood donations almost immediately. As the numbers came in, the scale of the tragedy hit harder. More than 50 people had lost their lives, dozens more were injured, and families across the region suddenly found themselves searching hospitals and morgues for loved ones who had simply gone out to work or shop that afternoon. The junction that had once been full of noise and business was now marked by wreckage and grief. In the days after, officials promised tighter road safety measures and better control of heavy vehicles, and many questioned why such large trucks were moving through crowded trading areas at all. But beyond policies and investigations, what lingered most was the human cost. Londiani wasn't just the site of a crash. It became a place where ordinary life was interrupted in the harshest way possible. A reminder that on busy roads shared by trucks and traders alike, a single moment can change everything forever. The Grand Canyon has a way of lulling people into a false sense of comfort. From a distance, it appears peaceful and almost cinematic, with sweeping vistas, sunlight illuminating the red rock walls, and tourists quietly admiring one of the most famous natural wonders on Earth. It is the perfect setting for slow walks, photographs, and quiet reflection. And for many visitors, it feels like a safe, almost controlled environment. But beneath that beauty lies a landscape that is far less forgiving than it appears. The cliffs are steep, the edges can be unstable, and a single misstep can have irreversible consequences. Nature does not pause for human observation, and even areas that seem secure can hide sudden hazards. In April 2019, this stark reality became tragically clear when Michael Obrich, a 67-year-old visitor from California, fell from the south rim near the Yavapai Geology Museum. What should have been a routine day of sightseeing transformed into a fatal accident in moments, a chilling reminder of how quickly circumstances can change in an environment where nature is in complete control. Obrich's fall illustrates just how ordinary a fatal accident can appear before it happens. He was reportedly walking in a popular section of the South Rim, a path many visitors take every day without incident. He was not climbing, taking unnecessary risks, or attempting a dangerous stunt. He was simply near the edge, appreciating the canyon's immense depth and layered rock formations. At some point, he accidentally went over the side, falling roughly 400 feet below the rim, a distance comparable to a tall skyscraper. Park rangers later recovered his body from the canyon wall, and the incident was officially ruled an accidental fall. The sheer height of the drop, combined with the unforgiving nature of the terrain, left no chance of survival. What makes this event especially sobering is how normal the setting likely seemed just moments earlier. Families talking, cameras clicking, and visitors slowly moving along the rim. There is no warning before such a fall, only a sudden lapse that can result from a brief misstep or an unstable edge. Beyond the immediate tragedy, Obrich's death underscores a larger truth about the Grand Canyon and similar natural landscapes. Despite signage, trails, and designated viewing areas, they remain wild and unpredictable environments. The ground can be uneven or covered in loose gravel. Edges can crumble without warning, and weather, fatigue, or a momentary lapse in attention can all contribute to accidents. The canyon is breathtaking, but it is indifferent to human presence, and it demands respect and constant awareness. Incidents like Obrich's serve as a powerful reminder that even careful, experienced visitors are vulnerable. Park officials regularly emphasize the importance of staying on trails and maintaining a safe distance from the rim, not as a suggestion but as a life-saving precaution. Behind every statistic is a person, a family, and a trip that was meant to create memories, yet ended in tragedy. Obrich's story reminds us that even in moments of quiet admiration and awe, nature's power is absolute, and safety requires vigilance at every step. As Hurricane Ian tore through central Florida, Authorities repeatedly warned residents to stay indoors, avoid floodwaters, and stop trying to fix things while a powerful storm was still raging. But in Deltona, one man ignored every common-sense warning and paid for it with his life. The 72-year-old man made the baffling decision to step outside in the middle of the night during the hurricane, not to seek safety or help, but to drain his swimming pool. While wind, rain, and flooding were intensifying, he chose property over personal safety, heading into conditions that emergency officials had made clear were dangerous and unpredictable. Sometime around 1 a.m., while Hurricane Ian continued dumping rain across the area, the man left his home on Poinciana Lane near Lake Bethel, armed with a flashlight and a hose. His plan, according to investigators, was to siphon water from his pool and direct it downhill into a nearby canal, an idea that ignored both basic storm safety and the obvious risks created by flooding. That canal, normally manageable under calm conditions, had swollen into a 30-foot wide hazard due to the storm. The embankment leading down to it had been transformed into a muddy slope, saturated by hours of relentless rain. The ground was unstable, slick, and unsafe, exactly the kind of place no one should have been standing during a hurricane, let alone in the dark. Predictably, things went wrong. When the man failed to return inside, his wife reported him missing. Deputies from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office responded to the home and began searching the property in dangerous conditions that no civilian should have been navigating to begin with. During the search, deputies found the man's flashlight near the canal, an ominous sign that confirmed what his decision had likely led to. Moments later, they spotted him unresponsive in the water behind the home. Several deputies pulled him from the canal and attempted to revive him, performing CPR until paramedics arrived. Despite their efforts, it was already too late. He was pronounced dead after being transported to the hospital. Investigators later confirmed what should have been obvious from the start. The man had been standing on a steep, rain-soaked slope while draining the pool. The embankment was extremely soft and slippery due to the hurricane, offering almost no traction. At some point, he lost his footing and fell into the canal, an entirely foreseeable outcome, given the conditions. Once in the water, there was little chance of escape. Flooded canals during storms can carry stronger currents than they appear to, and combined with darkness and exhaustion, the situation quickly became fatal. This was not a freak accident. It was a textbook example of poor judgment. Hurricanes are not the time for outdoor chores, home maintenance, or last-minute damage control. Draining a pool during a storm doesn't protect a house. It puts a person directly in harm's way. Emergency officials stress year after year that floodwaters are among the most dangerous threats during hurricanes, yet people continue to underestimate them. In this case, the man ignored warnings, underestimated the conditions, and overestimated his ability to control a situation that was already far beyond safe limits. What may have seemed like a quick fix turned into a fatal mistake. The tragedy underscores how stubbornness and false confidence can be just as deadly as the storm itself. Rather than waiting until daylight or until conditions improved, the man chose to act during the worst possible moment. Outside, in the dark, during active flooding. Authorities later extended condolences to the family, but the underlying message was clear. This death was preventable. The hurricane didn't force him outside. No emergency required immediate action. He made the choice himself. In Deltona, this man lost his life not because of the storm alone, but because he ignored its danger. And in the end, draining a pool during a hurricane proved to be a disastrously stupid hill to die on. The 1955 Le Mans disaster remains etched in the history of motorsport as the deadliest racing accident the world has ever seen, a grim reminder of how thrilling speed can suddenly turn into catastrophic tragedy. It all unfolded on June 11, 1955, during the famed 24 Hours of Le Mans, a race already notorious for pushing both drivers and machines to their absolute limits. The event was meant to celebrate human skill, mechanical ingenuity, and the thrill of competition, but it turned into a harrowing moment of chaos, loss, and life-altering consequences. That day, Mercedes driver Pierre Levegh was piloting his powerful Mercedes 300 SLR at an astonishing speed of around 240 kilometers per hour when fate, timing, and circumstances collided in a terrifying sequence. Ahead of him, an Austin Healey slowed abruptly to enter the pit lane, and a Jaguar swerved to avoid it, leaving Levegh with barely any room to react. In a desperate attempt to dodge disaster, Levegh veered his car, but physics and momentum had other plans. The Mercedes struck the Jaguar, became airborne, and crashed violently into the spectator area. The car exploded on impact, its magnesium alloy body igniting in an intense fire that sent debris, flames, and shrapnel into the crowd. In seconds, a joyful gathering had turned into a scene of screams, chaos, and unimaginable loss. The scale of the tragedy was staggering. 83 spectators lost their lives, more than 120 were injured, and Pierre Levegh himself did not survive. The disaster was made even more shocking by the fact that the race continued for several hours afterward. Race officials feared that halting the event immediately would trigger panic among thousands of attendees and potentially block emergency vehicles. The decisions made during those moments reflect the complex challenges of managing large-scale disasters, particularly at a time when safety protocols were far less developed than they are today. Beyond the immediate human toll, the Le Mans disaster had profound and lasting effects on motorsport around the world. Almost overnight, governments and racing authorities recognized the urgent need for sweeping safety reforms. Many countries temporarily banned racing on public roads and circuits, with Switzerland implementing a long-lasting ban that would only be lifted decades later. Racing circuits were redesigned to include better barriers, safer pit lanes, and larger runoff areas, while car manufacturers had to rethink vehicle construction to reduce the risk to drivers and spectators alike. The accident also marked the beginning of a more serious, almost scientific approach to safety in motorsport, influencing everything from trackside medical preparedness to spectator management and emergency planning. While the story of the 1955 Le Mans disaster is undeniably tragic, it is also a pivotal chapter in the evolution of racing safety. It serves as a stark reminder of how the quest for speed carries unimaginable risks, and how even the most sophisticated machines are subject to the unforgiving laws of physics. Today, Pierre Levegh and the 83 spectators are remembered not only for the lives lost, but also for the lessons learned. Their deaths spurred reforms that ultimately made motorsport safer for generations to come, influencing car design, circuit layout, and race regulations for decades. In the end, the disaster is more than a historical footnote. It is a testament to the delicate balance between human ambition, mechanical engineering, and the unpredictable forces of nature. It remains a somber symbol of why safety must always be at the forefront in any high-speed pursuit. And it reminds both drivers and fans that speed and spectacle are always accompanied by responsibility and caution. The events at Le Mans in 1955 are remembered not only for the tragedy, but also for the profound and lasting changes they brought to motorsport worldwide. September 2025 will sadly be remembered in Grand Canyon history for a tragic accident that shocked both locals and visitors. Stephen Drew Bradley, a 27-year-old from Colorado, was visiting the South Rim for what should have been a routine day of sightseeing when his vehicle went over the edge near the South Kaibab trailhead. The Grand Canyon, while breathtakingly beautiful, is also notorious for its sheer drops and unforgiving cliffs, a landscape that demands respect from all who enter it. Bradley's vehicle fell roughly 300 feet below the rim, ending his life in an instant. Helicopters and park rangers were immediately deployed to recover his body, transporting it back to safety and coordinating with the Coconino County Medical Examiner's Office. While the official reports did not clarify whether the accident was caused by mechanical failure, driver error, or some other factor, the incident starkly reminded everyone that even familiar landscapes can become deadly in a moment. Visitors are often captivated by the sweeping views, the sense of adventure, and the seemingly endless horizons. Yet, Bradley's accident illustrated just how quickly excitement can turn into tragedy when nature's limits are overlooked. The aftermath of the accident was chaotic and deeply unsettling. Park officials had to manage both the recovery operation and the safety of other visitors, some of whom had witnessed parts of the fall or arrived shortly after. Helicopters hovered over the canyon, providing both an essential lifeline and a dramatic visual of the incident's scale. Park rangers and first responders worked methodically under stressful conditions, navigating the treacherous cliffs to retrieve Bradley's body. Visitors and onlookers were left in shock, many processing the enormity of the canyon in an entirely new way. News and social media quickly spread the story, blending public grief with fascination as the world learned of the Colorado man who had met such a sudden end. While there is often a temptation to sensationalize events like this, the reality was far more serious. A young life lost, a community affected, and a sobering lesson about the unpredictability of the natural world. The Grand Canyon, as awe-inspiring as it is a place where even routine adventures carry inherent risks, and Bradley's death served as a powerful, if tragic, reminder of this truth. Bradley's accident also sparked broader conversations about park safety, vehicle precautions, and awareness near rim edges. The National Park Service emphasized the importance of vigilance, careful driving, and adherence to safety guidelines when visiting locations that combine beauty with danger. Friends, family, and the public mourned the loss of a young man whose adventure had ended far too abruptly. At the same time, the tragedy highlighted the critical work of emergency responders, whose swift actions ensured that the recovery was carried out safely despite the difficult terrain. It reminded visitors that the breathtaking landscapes of the Grand Canyon, while inviting and photogenic, demand a constant awareness of potential hazards. Ultimately, while the story of Stephen Drew Bradley is heartbreaking, it also serves as an enduring lesson. Adventure is thrilling, but it must always be paired with respect for nature's raw and unpredictable forces. The canyon will continue to awe and inspire. Yet this tragedy underscores the delicate balance between curiosity, enjoyment, and safety in one of the world's most magnificent natural wonders. If Niagara Falls has taught the world anything, it's that nature does not negotiate. It does not care about intentions, causes, or personal confidence. And yet, every so often, someone comes along who believes the rules don't apply to them. One of the most infamous examples of this kind of stubborn, entitled recklessness is the story of Robert Overacker, a man who ignored warnings, dismissed safety concerns, and paid for it with his life. Overacker, a 39-year-old jet ski stunt performer from Camarillo, California, wasn't lacking skill or experience. He knew machines and understood speed and had performed stunts before. What he lacked was restraint. Like many classic Karen figures, he believed his mission made him special, important enough to override laws, logic, and common sense. He decided that Niagara Falls, one of the most powerful natural landmarks on Earth, would simply have to bend to his plan. His justification was noble on paper. Overacker claimed he wanted to bring attention to homelessness across the United States, but instead of choosing a safe, legal, or effective method, he opted for spectacle. He decided that hurling himself over a 180-foot waterfall on a jet ski, despite strict prohibitions, warnings, and decades of documented fatalities, was somehow a reasonable idea. Authorities at Niagara Falls have long made it clear: no stunts, no vessels, no exceptions. The falls are not a stage, but like a true Karen, Overacker didn't care. Rules were for other people. Warnings were just obstacles. He was convinced that preparation and confidence would protect him from reality. On October 1st, 1995, he put his plan into motion. Thousands of tourists gathered, unaware they were about to witness a preventable death. Overacker launched his green jet ski toward Horseshoe Falls, the largest and most dangerous section of Niagara. He wore bright gear meant to signal preparedness, a red suit, helmet, and life jacket, as if visibility could substitute for safety. He had engineered what he believed was his fail-safe, a rocket-propelled parachute system designed to deploy after the fall and allow him to land safely. It was a homemade solution to a problem that never should have existed. Instead of respecting the raw force of the falls, Overacker tried to out-engineer it. As he sped forward, passing the point of no return, there was no turning back. Cameras rolled. The crowd watched. The jet ski launched into the mist, disappearing over the edge. And then, everything went wrong, exactly as experts would have predicted. The parachute system failed. It did not deploy properly. There was no second chance, no backup plan, no miraculous save. Overacker dropped straight down into the violently churning basin below, completely unprotected. The water at the base of Niagara Falls is not soft. It hits like concrete due to the immense force and turbulence. The impact killed him almost instantly. What spectators initially mistook for part of the stunt quickly turned into horror. The people who had come expecting a thrilling display instead watched a man's body pulled lifeless from the water by a tour boat only minutes later. His brother and friend, who had positioned themselves to document his triumph, were left to process the sudden reality that this was not bravery. It was fatal arrogance. Overacker became one of the few people in recorded history to die going over Niagara Falls intentionally. Not because he had to, not because of an accident, but because he refused to listen. His story is often framed as tragic, even heroic, because of his stated cause, but strip away the justification, and what remains is a classic Karen move. Ignoring rules, dismissing expert warnings, assuming personal ingenuity makes one immune to consequences, and dragging others into the fallout. Since his death, authorities have reinforced barriers, increased patrols, and doubled down on public messaging, hoping to prevent future self-inflicted tragedies. Overacker's stunt didn't advance his cause in any meaningful way, but it did become a permanent warning. His death wasn't mysterious. It wasn't unlucky. It wasn't heroic. It was dumb. And it stands as a brutal reminder that when entitlement meets unchecked confidence, even the loudest conviction can end in silence, drowned out by the endless roar of Niagara Falls. On a warm May night, a church bus rolled steadily along the interstate carrying teenagers home from a day at an amusement park. Their voices loud, messy, and wonderfully alive after hours of sun and rides. Inside, backpacks slid between seats. Someone passed around chips. Someone else tapped rhythms on the window, and the driver kept an easy pace while chaperones traded tired smiles. It felt like every harmless youth trip ever. The kind parents barely worry about. The kind that ends with sleepy heads against glass and soft laughter fading into yawns. Outside, the Kentucky highway stretched quiet and dark, dotted with headlights like fireflies drifting in opposite directions. Nothing about the scene hinted at danger. Nothing suggested that history was about to twist sharply. The bus hummed forward, radio low, conversations overlapping. A pocket of simple happiness rolling through the night as the miles slipped by unnoticed, and everyone imagined home, beds, and stories to tell tomorrow morning. Disguised as another set of headlights, ordinary and harmless, creeping closer with every passing second, silent, patient, and terribly certain to collide with their world before dawn broke that day there. Minutes later, that other vehicle appeared, swerving strangely across lanes, its headlights jerking like a confused animal trapped in the dark. Drivers honked, flashed beams, and tried to warn the truck, but it kept coming. Wrong way, wrong speed, wrong everything. The man behind the wheel was drunk, disoriented, and blind to the panic he carved through traffic. When metal finally met metal, the impact exploded like thunder, throwing bodies forward and ripping the bus sideways. Windows shattered, seats tore, and in the same breath, fuel lines ruptured and sparks raced under the chassis. Flames bloomed fast, hungry and bright, licking curtains, plastic and rubber, until the aisle turned into a tunnel of heat. Teenagers screamed, coughing smoke, scrambling for exits that suddenly felt too small. Chaperones shouted names, pulling hands, kicking open windows, ignoring burns as they pushed children out into the night. Strangers stopped their cars, running toward the inferno with jackets and bare arms, dragging the injured away from the spreading fire. Sirens wailed closer, painting the highway red and blue, while firefighters attacked the blaze with foam and water. fighting for seconds that felt endless. Some prayed, some froze, some simply refused to look away. Morning revealed the cost with heartbreaking clarity. 27 lives gone and dozens more wrapped in bandages and silence. Hospitals filled with families pacing corridors, waiting for names to be called, hoping for miracles that medicine could not promise. The crash investigation unfolded slowly, uncovering how alcohol, poor bus design, and limited emergency exits had combined into catastrophe. Fuel tanks placed too close to the impact zone fed the flames, and outdated materials burned faster than anyone expected. Public grief grew into action, lawmakers rewriting safety rules, demanding stronger structures, more exits, safer seats, and stricter standards for drivers. Memorials rose near the road, candles flickering each anniversary while survivors told stories about friends who never made it home. Their voices carried both sorrow and determination, a promise that the lost would not fade into statistics. Schools invited them to speak, warning students that drunk driving is not an accident but a choice with irreversible consequences. Even now, the stretch of interstate feels heavier, as if the asphalt remembers everything. The lesson remains simple: drive sober, protect others, and treasure ordinary nights because they can vanish without warning, leaving only echoes and empty seats behind. Always choose care over recklessness.